Does everyone have their cocktails? Because this one's going to be fun. Okay, so virtual reality is not just for gamers. It's not just for the Olympics, for people who were immersed in bobsledding during PyeongChang. It was pretty awesome. But there is a lot going on. I think it's actually within our fingertips. It's within reality. It's something that we can all work with and do. So we're going to talk about that. But first, if you guys could each introduce yourselves, say a little bit about what you do. We'll get into the definitions after. Start with you, Alissa.
Excellent. So I'm Alissa Crevier. I'm the VP of Global Business Development at Inception VR, and we are a virtual reality distribution platform. We distribute content agnostically across all the headsets that are out there. And then we also have a content creation studio focusing mostly on CGI and animation.
Hello, my name is Rori Duboff, and I'm the head of content innovation extended reality for Accenture Interactive. So part of Accenture, the much larger company, but we look at VR and AR and all different immersive experiences across everything from the enterprise side, so education, automotive, healthcare, to the consumer side, retail, marketing, all different areas.
Hi, I'm Russell Kwai. I'm the founder and CEO of BeLive, and we are a digital experiences company that leverages technology to tell stories and try to make money.
Awesome. Okay, so we have VR, AR, live, all different experiences, fashion, media, marketing, tech. We're going to get into it. Rory, let's talk about extended reality first. Before we get to the VR and AR part, just what do you do?
Sure. So I'll just start off with because you asked me before about the term XR or extended reality. So I think what's in the last few years, what's happened is there've been a lot of terms thrown out, virtual reality, augmented reality, and people get hung up on that. And for a while, people were saying, it's all about different forms of mixed reality. But then Microsoft went out and launched some products and started calling some of them a mixed reality, their whole product line, which was AR and VR, which confused the market a little bit. So we're using the term extended reality to basically cover anything that deals with the spectrum of AR and VR. So anything that deals with the spectrum of your reality or experiences, how you engage with content, whether it's through a headset, mobile device, and the different levels of immersiveness and engagement. And it's a bit easier of a term to encompass that, and I think other people in the industry are using it now because we're trying to avoid getting into conversations where somebody says, I want an AR or I want a VR, and what does that mean? Let's talk about what's the type of experience you're trying to create, what's the type of ways you want to merge the physical and virtual worlds, and then we'll go from there. Then we'll decide, is it the right thing to use this technology? So it's an effort to sort of step back and say, let's look at it at a more strategic level versus jumping right into execution and technology.
Russell, you have this, right, with clients when it comes to fashion shows particularly?
Yes, and
Give it all to me,
it's a great question. We get this a lot. We need to do VR, and we're like, okay. So we would go out and we'd buy the Ozo camera, unfortunately, and we would create very expensive VR experiences that get distributed in very small number of ways. I know there's that's a growing field, but I think it's smart. That strategy is always, our clients, we're a little bit different. We're not selling some long-term vision of what VR can do. We're trying to tell stories and create content for clients. So we have to have some kind of return on that investment. And unless the client clearly understands that there's only going to be 12,000 people that see it, and there's only going to be, it's not they have to understand what their strategy is, and if it's about press, if it's about buzz, if it's about just being innovative and learning, then we're all for it. But if not, we try to steer away from it because it's too difficult to come back from something that's perceived as a failure, and then they get, soured on the whole technology.
Alissa, how hard is it?
Yeah, I think to echo your point, also, we see a lot of brands kind of pulling away from VR in the sense of they're seeing that the return on investment is not what they expected in traditional media, right? So I have a lot of conversations with clients where it's not just about, okay, we can do VR for press or for your kind of enterprise or for training, that kind of thing, but then also saying to them, how can we also make this more immersive and also create an AR experience to go with the VR experience? So kind of creating that extended reality as a full package to brands.
So we've seen a lot of tech, health tech, and various ways that these types of extended reality are really changing lives. Right now we're into media, entertainment, advertising. What's the best VR experience you've seen in the media landscape?
I don't have the answer for media landscape, but I'm going to answer what my favorite is, if that's okay. So my favorite is My Brother's Keeper from Brian Seth Hurst. He's coming out with another piece on the Titanic, so he has the rights to actually dive down and shoot the whole thing in VR, and he's going to be pulling up some really interesting landmark pieces that have not yet been explored, and they'll be on, on tour throughout all of the museums. So I think he's a great producer, and I'd say, yeah, My Brother's Keeper is definitely my favorite.
Roy?
I wish that was an easier one to answer, like something just
You can
top
have
of mind.
two.
I have so many. That's their next. To me right now, the most momentum's happening in the AR space more than the VR space with brands. I mean, I will say that
Pokemon.
In AR, I think more of some of the new apps that have utility and function. So a lot of the new shopping apps that have been put out there. Whether it's IKEA or what Amazon's doing, Nike's done some interesting stuff with using Snap. I also think what the New York Times is doing with AR within their app. So for the Bowie exhibition for the Olympics, they did some really cool 3D visualization of content. For VR, I saw something.
Nick's still here?
Sorry?
We had the CTO of the New York Times was here earlier. I don't see him, but
shout out
props to him. Yep.
Yeah, they're doing. And then I saw a really good Gatorade VR experience that showed what dehydration was like, and in the VR experience, your headset got like foggy and you kind of couldn't see, which I thought was really well done. So I think what you're asking specifically about brands, right? Because
I think it's just more in the entertainment, media space, or education, but we're not getting into some of the medical applications that are seen earlier.
So the last shout out I'll say is that the Tribeca immersive experience or virtual arcade, it was a few weeks ago, and there was some amazing stuff there.
I was going to talk about that.
Yeah.
So were people here? Did anyone go to that event at the Tribeca Film Festival? So it was kind of the first time that VR got that front stage in a film festival. I thought it was amazing. So it was very crowded. It was super well attended, and it really created this whole buzz of, wow, VR is like here in New York, and you can all go see it, and it's part of the film festival, and maybe everybody's going to be doing it next year, right?
Yeah, well, I think actually this is their third year, believe it or not, doing it. And it's just getting better and better, although the lines are getting longer and longer and it's harder and harder. And there's a whole, when you go to it, you have to have a mental preparation, not to have a meltdown, which I still do each time I go because you can't get into the things you want to see. But that and Sundance and Cannes, you're definitely seeing VR content hugely creeping into all of the Hollywood space and films and art and creativity. So that's a whole other area. But there's a tremendous amount of cool content. So I often just look up, Tribeca, and make sure that everything that they featured there, I try to check out even after the festival, because there's a lot of cool stuff there. Battlescar was something, one of my favorites, if anyone else went to that. So,
Russell?
The last, since we do a lot of fashion related production, there was a collaboration with Theo Stanley directed a piece with the Martha Graham Dance Studio that was a partnership with Barney's, and I thought that was amazing. And I think the reason it was amazing was because the entire experience and the actual choreography and the way it was shot was all built for the purpose of creating something substantial and entertaining on VR, and I think that's what it takes, because I think creatively to tell stories with VR is a very different world. It's exciting, and it's also very hard, and it's not typical. And you're not telling a story, you're just letting people discover a story. And I think it's a lot of times when we do a music festival and we do a 6-camera live VR shoot, and there's just cameras plopped up on the stage, but the stage is not set up to make it meaningful, and it's just more gimmicky. And I think that the creative aspect is what needs to, which is, I think, to your point, is starting to happen a lot more, where the technology and how people are consuming the media is becoming part of the creative process and the planning. And I think that's when it gets good.
Alyssa, do you want to talk about that, the planning stages of it? Like you do a lot of VR, so how does that manifest?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the ideation stage and just making sure that everybody's goals are similar as we enter ideation with our creative team and then the brands that we're working with as well. So trying to educate clients as to why it would be beneficial to have that fog show up on somebody's headset, or have a sub pack on and have their heartbeat faster, or have their chest constrict for whatever $25,000 more on the day of the event. Then it's going to be much more of a win. You're gonna see people come away with memories that are much different than if you didn't include that. So I think it's just about making sure that ideation from the beginning is, everyone's on the same page.
Rori, did you want to add to that? Just about the pre-shoot experience, like what the strategy, the sort of things that have to be thought about before you actually start creating.
Yeah, well, we've
probably endless.
Well, I think you have to identify, what's your, we always start off with, when it goes beyond media, but use case. We talk about use cases a lot. What are you trying to achieve? What's the narrative? I think people also jump to try to price things out before they even know what the platform you're planning to do it on. So, fully immersive versus mobile so thinking about those considerations as well. But obviously, designing, I always say it's not about like the storyline, it's about the story world you're trying to build. And thinking in 3D is very different than thinking in 2D. And the way you imagine and all your senses, come into play. And so it's the fundamental shift in mindset is so important. And it goes back. I mean, a lot of people say, you go back to like when we used to just have TV and everyone was saying, if you're doing digital, you have to think differently. You can't put like a TV commercial online. You need to break it up. It's the same thing, the shift now into this next realm. It's fundamental shift in how people are going to experience it is so very different. And that mindset at the beginning is probably the most important for me.
I agree. So I've been working in digital video, obviously, for a million years. And, there's been these moments of virtual reality and video gaming too, but just virtual reality, it's here, it's coming, it's, for the past, I would say 5 years. And then Ready Player One came out. Everyone in this room probably saw Ready Player One. And
better. The book is better.
The book is better. We universally agree that the book is better. But from that sort of moment of pop culture, movies, sold out theaters, everybody talking about it, what do we think that is doing to VR? Was that an inflection point? Was that past the inflection point, or that doesn't really count because it wasn't really it?
For me, I think it intrigues people. It obviously shows. I mean, it's no different than Neuromancer or a lot of the people, science fiction sort of portending what will happen or being prescient about the future. And I think it's scary and it's also exciting. I mean, it seems like very sad to live in a world where your only real experiences are in a room with the goggles on, but at the same time, it's endless, and the opportunities are endless. I think it excites people, and I think it is helping. I just think, to all of our points, it's got to get away from the buzz and the gimmick part of it. That it just works at all, and oh my gosh, it works. That's so cool, But that's not a sustainable, model for telling stories or for entertaining people. And I think that movie, I think, shows how it could. The world could be, but I also think it just shows that it's inevitable. It's happening. It's not going away.
Right.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think it was an inflection point. And we keep saying, like you said, like this is year of this. This is year. There isn't like one inflection point here. I think it's a gradual over time. And the more we see this technology in movies and pop culture, the more we see brands use it and transforming their own products. The more we see different industries, the more it will infiltrate all lives, and then we'll understand it. But I don't think there's been one moment yet, and I don't know if there'll be one moment. People love to refer to like the iPhone phenomena with VR being like, there's only that killer app, and I'm not sure that's what's going to happen. I don't know. I think
cardboard.
Yeah, I'm not sure that. I think it's. And that's where I think we get too hung up on the technology. Like, it's not one device that's going to make it or break it. It's this general transition over time to content appearing in our worlds in 3D formats, and it's an evolution. And that's just where we're headed. It's like you said, it's going to happen. So I think it's more gradual.
Yeah, I'd say, in addition, I think it's also the change in human behavior, right? So I'd say, 4 years ago or so, we weren't necessarily used to only ingesting content on Snapchat for only 3 to 5 seconds. We're still, all of us are not used to going home, watching Netflix, having our laptop, having our phone, and also having a headset. And so what does that look like, and how long does that take to make that change? I think it's important to think about, but I agree. I mean, I think it's definitely here to stay. The film is neither here nor there in the technology and where we're going with it. I think it's just about pushing the human behavior and that change.
I also think that it's not as new as everybody thinks. I mean, when my first company, Sport Vision, we did the virtual first down line, and we tracked NASCAR's cars 4 times a second with military-grade GPS. And we built, using video game engines, a way to watch a NASCAR race just with data, and a video game engine that's interpreting the data and creating a visualization. So, I mean, it was successful, but I mean, and it wasn't. But it's not. It wasn't
and
an inflection
expensive.
point. It was very expensive, and that's why the company didn't, do that great. But it's still around. But it's getting. I think it's getting cheaper and easier to do those things, and leveraging the. I think the data is what makes stuff interesting, and experiencing something in real time in a way that is better than seeing it with video. I think that's where I'd like to see things go.
So I said I was going to ask this question. If I had $200, if everyone in this room was given $200, should they go buy Oculus Go glasses?
Yes.
I'd say pair up and
Be efficient, share.
Yeah, take 100 and buy one. I mean, you should definitely experience it, I think. But I would say experience it and make sure one of your best friends has it.
Just like cable. I mean, I think, so the question is really how much programming is there going to be? Like if you go in and make this investment, which is big or small, depending, it's not zero. And then you've got these glasses sitting around, like what are we doing with these headsets and how are they going to be useful on the daily basis? Like obviously our iPhones and all the streaming video that we do all day is useful and entertaining on a daily basis, but is there enough? Is it
I think it's going to be when it's more community-based, when you and your friends are doing something together with goggles on, and I think that's the hard part, just the difference in the landscape of the different devices and platforms to view it, and then just people doing something at the same time. So interacting with the virtual world, like a multiplayer game, but like in VR, I think that's obviously what's cool now, I think. But, it's hard for people to do things at the same time.
Yeah, I think that, people are recognizing that content is there needs to be a lot more content. And so at F8, right, they announced Oculus has a whole new initiative with NextVR and Live Nation. They're going to be doing a lot more around social VR. I think with Microsoft that bought AltSpace, right? So there's a lot of investment in social VR. There's also a lot of investment now in Google and NBC have a partnership now? They're doing like a bunch of series around behind the scenes content. So you're seeing lots of continued investment now in content, creating the content that's making it worthwhile to have, for these devices. And, you've got Netflix and Hulu, and I was using the Oculus Go this week. I was talking to someone about, to your point, is it like transformational? I think if you already use VR and have been exposed to VR, it's great because it's cheaper, and you don't need a phone, which is awesome. For people who haven't, it's a lower price point. But even though I work and breathe in this space every day, I don't really enjoy sitting with a headset on my head. But I think I've heard some people actually are now watching Netflix and Hulu in their headsets. So, you say it's easy for one person to say, I could never imagine doing that. I could never imagine banking online. I could never imagine trusting the internet to do that. So we have to be careful of these things we say, I could never imagine this, because history shows us that we are so wrong.
I agree with that. People complained when they started using color photos in the New York Times. It's just like, that you got to throw all that out the window. No one knows really anything.
On that note, do you have questions for this panel? They seem to know a lot. Go ahead. Oh, mics. I just want to make sure we have enough time, and then I have more questions for you guys.
actually going to make a comment rather than a question, which is I went to the Tribeca Film Festival also this year, and there's a company, I think it's called Presto Studios. They had Alumet and Arden's Wake, which are just breathtaking. They're like 20-minute experiences.
You got to see it.
Sounds like a nightmare. 20 minutes in VR world sounds awful, and you're in tears by the end of both of them. It's so powerful. Yeah. So Arden's Wake and Alumet, I mean, it's unlike anything I've ever experienced.
I guess so. My question is surrounding like the ideal use case in the short term for VR, because part of the magic is that it takes you totally out of this world and you can create something new. But, right now festivals are where you go experience it and they're really painful. Like you have to wait in line and nobody's really figured that out yet. And then you're like surrounded by people and put into this space and it's really uncomfortable as a person. Yeah. And you have to share it and there's all these problems with the distribution of it. So like in movie theaters, like you go to a movie theater to see a movie. What is that for VR?
Well, the movie, have you been to the Lowe's, right? They've got the whole VR installation. So location-based experiences, right, are now big for VR. Are you saying you've tried it or you haven't? Or
I've been to them. I still don't find them particularly compelling. I mean, I think it is a content thing as well.
Right. Yeah, and it's like after you've seen a long movie, do you want to? But I mean, they're becoming more and more popular, right? So I think that they're VR arcades, and so that's a huge growth area. But sorry, was your question more around use case for the content or use case for distribution?
Just where these things will live. Because I guess in my opinion, it is this very personal thing that you'll have in your home, but I think we're still a long ways away from everyone having a computer that can support these headsets.
Yeah. So I would say I just think you're going to continue to see. I mean, I see all the time. I'm in Brooklyn. There's like pop-ups of VR locations in many, many places. And hopefully they'll have more of that award-winning content that you're seeing at Tribeca, right? Because sometimes they just have stuff that's. So for me, that's one of the things that I'm just seeing as a trend is there's more and more locations that are popping up to support that.
Yeah, I would echo that. The location-based entertainment is going to be hugely important in this, and I think that there are other markets, specifically in Asia, that are far ahead of where we are right now, and they're seeing great success in the arcades. I would recommend that everyone go up to VR World and check it out. But I think when you think about what it might look like to come across Times Square and see 100 positron chairs set up with, that are kind of capsules that you can walk into and that make sure that you're not going to get sick and you can choose out of 20 different pieces of content, pay right there, swipe, and then you're in it. It's a much more seamless situation. And I think hopefully that's what we'll see here in the US as well.
Hi, I'm really interested in what you guys' opinions is on social VR. You're talking about social VR being a big area of investment and of new content being created for that. And I'm wondering, how do we create positive experiences in social VR and not just kind of spaces for trolls and harassment and other kinds of negative experiences?
Well, I don't think anything's going to change. I mean, that stuff happens no matter what the location is. So I think it's just going to be up to the people not paying for it. I mean, like I don't think that's a great question, but human nature is not going to change just because you're in a. I mean, that's why I thought that movie was Ready Player One. Because it's like it's the same issues. It's just a different it's a different way of experiencing them.
Well, do you think that maybe some of the we can, as designers, can take some responsibility for how we structure the ways that people can interact in these, or possibly maybe, I think also it's a matter of access. Who is going to come into a VR chat in the first place, and what kind of community is being built on that? So if we can diversify the people who have access to this or who maybe know about it, then maybe they can, the kinds of interactions will change.
Yeah, I would say, remember MySpace, what that was like? And then Facebook came along and put some order into the ecosystem. I imagine that it's just the maturity of the industry. So I agree. I've had, there are some really not great stuff going on, but and I think it's something that we have to keep raising. So hopefully, as the industry matures, there will be more standards, and it has to do with everything with privacy and data. And I'm just thinking back to the social history again, but
Yes. Yeah. Thanks.
I think it also just becomes a responsibility not only as a designer or developer, but then also as a community as a whole. It's like the thumbs up. You really have to consider who you're giving the thumbs up to.
It says, I guess, extended reality. So I've heard a lot about virtual reality. Can you give me some examples of how you're being successful with augmented reality?
Sorry. Successful with augmented reality. Well, one of the things that I was mentioning before is I think we're seeing augmented reality with retail is a really big area of opportunity, and the opportunity for product makers to enable people to, whether it's automotive or furniture or any object that you want to see in your own personal contextual environment, and that really can help make a decision as to whether or not you'll purchase it. That's why I think IKEA has been so successful. So there's a massive shift between this 2D interaction to 3D, and so AR is really good with that in terms of contextualizing products. We're also seeing other areas that AR has been very helpful on the enterprise side is things like we call wayfinding. In terms of providing data overlays and information for workflow processes. So especially with glasses where workers are not able to, if they need to see things immediately in time and kind of they're more efficient and in terms of on the manufacturing floor. So there's also examples, obviously, that are not just utilitarian based, but AR tends to be really good at solving problems and bringing things to light in ways that are dimensionalizing data in ways that are hard to do in just 2D. So,
Any others back there? Oh.
I just wanted to talk about safeguards for children. So I know that the FBI had released a statement on AR and how it was affecting children because some of the pedophiles were having the Pokemon thing in front of their house. So do you have any safeguards, set up or any best practices on how we can protect children?
Creeps.
I've never heard that. That's horrible.
Yeah, I think the safety issues with Pokemon Go, we were talking about them before we came on, they've been well publicized. But listen, I think that as an association, there's VR association here, VR AR associations are getting together and coming up with rating systems and legal that hopefully will, aim to solve a lot of these issues, but it's still very new and in its infancy, but I don't have the answer that we're already solving it.
Me neither.
Yeah.
Awesome. How you doing? My name is Lex. I'm a VR developer here in New York. Thank you for this talk. This is really amazing. And you guys are kind of the first in this space, right? The first that brands turn to try out these new technologies, AR, VR, and XR. And how do you feel about your responsibility as to having those smaller projects succeed and pave a path to the future of XR for brands, right? So what do you feel about, from the cost to the ROI of it to make each of these early steps a success, right?
I think it's really hard. We've done, maybe 20 different VR productions with fashion brands, and I can honestly say that I don't think any of them were really money well spent, even though it was fun and it was an experience that the client wanted, and we didn't.
And they were happy.
I think they're happy, but they're always surprised. No one, even though you tell them up front, it's like, I don't, not that many people can see it. And, it's like, they're used to like being able to send memos that are quantifiable, that show quantifiable success. And that's pretty much their world. And so I think it's a tough problem. I think it's back to the creativity of it. And I think you got to, we're sort of not pitching it as much because we're waiting for the brands that want to go into it in a level that makes sense, where the event is designed for VR. And I think that's hard to do because the way that the businesses work now and everything is happening, it's a big shift to get someone to do something for a new experience that may have less viewers, but still be revolutionary and interesting. But, unless they're looking to it as a branding exercise, we just want to be thought of as an innovative brand. And that's usually what happens. You still have to be able to show some ROI. And I think that's why we're not as, bullish about it right now. We're sort of more like, yeah, we want to do it, but we're looking for the right partners that want to do it in an interesting, compelling way. And that's I think, going to take some time.
This is this pressure question.
Yeah.
Paving the way for the future.
I think it's mostly about, again, educating your client as to what they're really getting, but also from, so I've always worked for, both of the VR companies that I've worked with and worked for have been essentially they're distributing content, right? So in many ways, I feel good about getting that out to the masses, both at Little Star and at Inception. But secondly, we make sure at Inception that we're looking at every single piece of content that is being distributed so that it's not going to make somebody sick, so it's not going to make someone, fall over. And that's really important to the space still today as well, so.
Rori, do you want to add anything?
I would just add that I think it just needs to be part of a larger ecosystem. So it shouldn't be a one-off, right? I think Pepsi did for the Super Bowl this year. They did the commercial, they did a VR experience, they did an AR experience, and they're testing out what the whole impact of everything is together. And so to me, it's the more that it's integrated into something broader than just a one-off, execution, then the better it is.
Yeah.
I have one question. This is about decentralization of AR, VR marketplaces and experiences. Do you guys have thoughts on how blockchain could be helping or hurting the AR, VR ecosystem?
Well, I think it can't do anything but help. I think it'll help, securely and privately allow for the dissemination of the content, and I think monetization of the content. But it's a good question, but I don't think it's not, in my mind anyway, it's not a direct correlation because it's more about privacy and transactions happening in a decentralized way. So I think that can only help every business that's transacted on the internet. But I don't see them tied 100% together.
I think for areas like when we get it more into commerce, I think it will be helpful for v-commerce platforms, AR commerce platforms. Right now this whole system is already so fragmented that, and that's just due to different platforms versus even so. But yeah, I think it will be really helpful in terms of data and like you're saying, transaction and commerce.
Oh, Simon.
Hello, everyone. I'm Simon Applebaum. I'm the producer and host of Tomorrow Will Be Televised, the promo about television on Blog Talk Radio and the iHeartRadio Podcast Network. And here's a simple question. Why are we talking about putting virtual reality on the television set? Given A, 2/3 of U.S. households now have smart TV sets and smart TV devices that can handle augmented and virtual reality. B, there's a fast-growing number of television sets and devices, smart, that have artificial intelligence built in. So that could be used to manipulate VR on the television set with your voice. And third, there's a company here in New York called Little Star that has an app on Apple TV where you can, using your Apple TV remote control or Siri, manipulate the picture. So why not, as an alternative or a supplement to headsets, use the television set to make virtual reality and augmented reality happen?
So I start there.
Yeah, so I worked for Little Star before I worked for Inception, and the Apple television user numbers are not that high, actually. I mean, it in comparison to all the headsets, et cetera, et cetera. And the age group actually is much different. For people watching 360 video through the Little Star app at home, it's much different than what it looks like through the headsets. So it might be a completely different product one day. 360 video is different altogether from VR, I think. Augmented reality, I think that we should have, ad units where you're watching something at home, and they're already out there, and Inception's creating one right now and working with RTL Group out of Germany on this, but essentially being able to take a chair, an advertisement may pop up as you're watching your favorite show, and you open your camera using ARKit or ARCore, and you can drag that product into your living room and place it on the ground. What does that look like? So it's being done, but I don't think that we should solely focus on it and only focus on it.
I actually have a question back to that. So how are you defining TV? Because I'm not sure, for any virtual reality, you still need a headset, right? Right now, the way it exists. So you'd still need to connect. Sony PlayStation has a console that they're using. So like you were saying, Apple TV is the component that's hosting it. But why do we need to? It's not going to funnel through the TV pipes or cable systems, right? What is it about TV that it's the reach you're saying, or so the current.
We're seeing millennials and people of color forcing the action. The research is showing that this is how people are watching Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, et cetera, et cetera. They're not watching on the PC or the smartphone, the tablet. They're watching through the television set. And it just seems to me that this, I'm not saying it should be the way, but it can be a way that virtual, augmented, mixed reality can get to people faster than the headset, where a lot of people are not using it because of price or issues they have.
But TV by its very definition is a screen, and virtual reality by its very definition is not a screen. It's your inside a world. So you would never, it's a different medium. It's like saying, why wouldn't you, I don't know.
Do it with the book.
Yeah, it's a different medium.
Yeah, I don't think maybe I'm not reading the same research you are, but I have a 14-year-old daughter, and she doesn't watch anything that's not on her phone or her laptop. So I mean, I can't even get her to watch the TV. So I mean, and it's a rectangle of a 2D space. So unless the television transforms into some sort of system that allows you to create the immersion visualization in some other way, I don't understand the question really, because it's like it would show you 1 16:9 square of the virtual reality, unless it's projecting through the room. You know what I mean? I think the concept is interesting, but it's different in my mind.
Yeah, I think it's a question of the medium. This 360 video, I think what you're referring to specifically with the television, and then augmented reality capabilities. I do think
augmented reality is in your environment. It's not on a screen.
But if you have your phone and you open up your camera and you're pointing it at a television, there's the augmented reality.
Yeah, if you want to point your phone at a TV, which I don't really see the future of doing. I think the future is like if we're moving away from screens, we're moving into worlds where we're borderless frames. So I think it's. I get your point about reach, but I'm just not sure that's where the world is headed right now. I think the world is heading towards more amorphous ways of interacting with content, not confined to a screen. I think eventually screens will disappear. So.
More on that at the cocktails. Okay. Thank you guys so much for being here, Alissa, Rori, and Russell. Thank you guys. And
all right, round of applause. Thank you very much, panelists and Rebecca moderating. That's fantastic.